And again, as Ed said, welcome to all of you. Great turnout. This is the 4th Ward Candidate Forum, sponsored by the Athens Public Library and the Athens County League of Women Voters. This is an important event in helping to provide information about our candidates to an informed electorate. Tonight we will hear from the two candidates, Christine Fall and Randy Morris, and I will review the ground rules for this evening's forum. They were sent to the candidates prior to this evening, but they probably don't mind hearing them again, and for your benefit. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to make an introductory statement. The order was determined by lot just prior to this forum. And according to lot, the first statement will be presented by Christine Fall, followed by Randy Morris. Questions will then be put to the candidates by a panel of representatives of media. And the media representatives will each be asking 2 questions. The order of their questioning has also been determined by lot earlier this evening. And so tonight, in order of the questions that they will be asking, Sarah Beth Hensley of the Post, David DeWitt of the Athens News, Laurel Walmsley of WOUB, and Sarah Brumfield of the Athens Messenger. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each question. The first respondent is the candidate who made the first introductory statement, so this evening that will be Ms. Fall. Thereafter, the first respondent to each question will alternate between the candidates, starting with the candidate who responded second to the previous question. Following questions from the panel, we will present questions from the audience. That's where you folks come in. Again, candidates will have up to 2 minutes to respond to each question, and questions should be written so that they might be answered by each of the candidates. Audience members are encouraged to submit questions. Each question will be reviewed by 2 people to ensure that there are no repeat questions and they can be answered by both candidates. Our intent, of course, is for a balanced and educational program. Each candidate then will finally have the opportunity to make a 2-minute closing statement in the reverse order of the opening statements. And yes, timekeeper who just now got drafted into the job, but she's very experienced, is Muriel Grimm, who will be keeping us on track here. Okay, we will now then begin with opening statements. As indicated earlier, our first statement is by Ms. Fall, and then followed by Mr. Morris.
Thank you. I want to thank the Athens County League of Women Voters and the Athens County Library for sponsoring this, and for all of you coming out tonight. And I also want to thank Randy Morris for running and taking his time to be part of the city. I'm asking the opportunity to continue working on City Council and moving Athens in the right direction. My planning background and my experiences working with many community groups in Athens brings a unique perspective to council. My experience with a PhD in planning and a master's in regional planning brings skills and many experiences to City Council to help find solutions to the issues that we face as a community. In finding these solutions to these issues, we also have to understand that we need to protect the things that we love. Part of my job on council right now is to listen to people. People educate me all the time on the various issues and their views on the issues. Part of my job also is to bring people together and have people communicate and talk and cooperate in making the solutions that will bring our city and issues to answer the issues that we have. Effective government must look at all sides of an issue. There are not just 2 sides to an issue. There are many sides. And as a community, we need to look at all those sides. My work on council, whether it's with the Planning and Development Committee or working on the Town Hall Planning Committee, is to bring together people to look at these issues together in a cooperative, respectful manner, to go forward and produce solutions that will work for our city. It's my firm belief that our beautiful neighborhoods, our great art and recreation facilities, and the great culture that we present, the fair and effective government that we have will continue to bring quality jobs to Athens, while also recognizing that we have to protect the things that we love about Athens and makes us different than other communities. My experience, my education, and my familiarity with the issues that face the Fourth Ward makes me the best candidate for the Fourth Ward seat on City Council. And I look forward to continuing serving you on City Council. Thank you.
And now Mr. Morris with your opening statement.
Well, I too would like to thank the League of Women Voters for holding this forum, and I would like to apologize to everyone in the room. If I had not run, you could be home watching television right now. The other 6 council races are unopposed, and I personally don't find that to be a good thing. I think it's good to have a good, honest debate and to discuss issues, and so I definitely wanted to run to get my views out there and give the people of Ward 4 a choice. And I think this is a pretty significant difference of opinions. I would like to mention that my view of this is that she is eminently qualified for this job, and I would like to believe that I am eminently qualified as well. So I don't think qualifications are that big a factor. That's my opinion. But it's also good to know that all the people that I've met on City Council are nice people. The mayor's a nice person. This is not about personalities. It's not about being disagreeable. It's just about disagreeing about policies and how to best run the city in an effective way. So I think we've made the campaign into a campaign about issues, and that's a good thing. I have made some points throughout the campaign about my feelings that the City Council could do some improving in terms of openness and accountability and some fiscal discipline. Certainly, my guess is half of this room would disagree with that, but that is my opinion, and that's what I'm running on, and that's what I am trying to convey to the voters of the 4th Ward. If you feel like what's been happening in City Council is wonderful, that there has been lots of openness and accountability, that there has been lots of fiscal discipline and fiscal responsibility in the city government, then you should vote for my opponent. But if you don't believe that, if you believe there could be some improvement and some questions asked of the appropriate people might be a good thing, then I would ask you to consider voting for me and consider my qualifications as well. When I come to City Council, if I'm elected, all I'm going to have is the ability to persuade. There are still going to be 6 votes, and if I don't persuade anybody to change their mind, the worst that can happen is the votes will be 6-1 instead of 7-0. I urge you to consider voting for me for City Council.
Thank you both for your opening statements. We will begin our first round of questioning from the press, and the first question will be from Sarah Beth Hensley of the Post, and Ms. Fall will be the first respondent to that question.
Hello, candidates. My first question is, what would be your top priority if elected or re-elected?
My top priority, I have a planning background, and I want to bring to council, continue bringing to council, that experience and knowledge base to move the city forward in a sustainable development ways. I have experience in helping communities do economic development. I have experience in helping communities do comprehensive planning. So I have a lot of different varied skill levels to bring to council. Right now, I think that the city is at a road where we can continue going down the path towards smart growth and sustainability, or we can kind of look backwards and do the same things that used to be done in the past by not looking at the things that make Athens really wonderful and using those for economic development and protecting those things where we can go and do smart growth and smart development and make policy to encourage that. So I think that it's a question of putting together a package with doing code, putting code together differently, updating code, working together with different communities within the greater Athens, working with business people and working with neighborhoods to move Athens forward in doing smart development, smart growth, and making it more sustainable.
Mr. Morris, the same question.
Okay. My top priority, if elected to City Council, would be to use my powers of persuasion, if possible, to convince the City Council that the priorities of safety and security of our citizens need to be put at the top, like the word priority implies. Currently, we're for cities of our population, we should have, for example, 33 police officers. We currently have 26 funded, as I understand it, and only 24 in place. That's about 73% of the police manning that we should have. In terms of budgetary priorities, it seems to me that that's the equivalent of when you do your home budget, you do what most people do when you do your budget. You sit down and you figure out what your must-pays are, your rent, your gas, your electric, and then you figure out what you have money left over to do that you'd like to do. And at the bottom of that list, you might have going to the movies or eating out more often. But the way we're budgeting right now, it seems to me like we've decided that we're only going to pay 73% of the rent, and we're only going to pay 73% of the electric bill and the gas bill. And that way we have enough money to do the movies and go to out to dinner every night. That's not the way I think budgeting ought to be done, and that's what I would like to change so that the issues that are of concern to our citizens in terms of safety and security, the police, the fire department, and our streets need to move up in the priorities. And again, I would use hopefully use my power to persuade them that we need to relook at our priorities for the city.
Thank you. Our next question from the media goes first to Mr. Morris, and it's from David DeWitt of the Athens News.
Hello. You have both said that you are for smart growth or intelligent development. Could you cite some examples of development in the city that you have supported, as well as examples you have not supported, and why?
Yes. I'm involved in business incubation. I work for the National Business Incubation Association now, and as part of that job, I went to an International Economic Development Council convention a couple of years ago, and I went to a session on smart growth. And so smart growth, as it was explained to me, is using high-density housing in the city to bring lots of people into a place there, so that you can use more concentrated effort in terms of city services and that sort of thing. And so I applaud the things that have happened in the city. I have no problems with there may be flaws in terms of on the peripherals of things like Palmer Place and University Commons and the Summit at Coates Run, but I think those are fine developments. I think that takes pressure off of my neighborhood, for example. When it comes to student housing, I think that's an excellent place for students to live. And so I am not opposed to growth like that. I'm not opposed to university estates. Though my critics would probably disagree with this, I have no designs on leveling the forest and putting up Walmarts. I mean, the smart growth is certainly it's all a matter of degree, and I believe that some of the things that we've done in this city have been just fine. And I would like more of that to take more pressure off of my neighborhood in terms of student housing.
Ms. Paul.
Great, thank you. I think smart growth is even more than just high density. Smart growth is the intelligent use of our land and our infrastructure. Athens has some challenges when it comes to land base in which to make new developments. High density does not necessarily mean only projects like Coach Run or Palmer Place. It also means making scale appropriate, making infill projects or projects that go into areas that need to be redeveloped or developed in neighborhoods that make sense for those neighborhoods. It uses the infrastructure better, so that benefits both the developer and the city, because the city reduces costs, so they don't have to, plow new roads and such. It respects the scale of the neighborhood. I think an excellent project that's being developed right now is where Athens Flower Shop is. They're putting in 7 small condominiums that will be moderate to medium income housing, so that's something that we need in Athens. We don't need just student housing. We need to encourage redevelopment, making better use of the land that's already been developed, because the infrastructure is already there. That makes sense. That's a win for the developer. It's a win for the city. It's not just high density. It's density that makes sense, that's scale appropriate for the neighborhoods. Also, I think that when we look at this, we have to be proactive. We have to have code and development in our code. We have to make sure that these sort of projects are encouraged. And so that means some changing to our codes with density, with some of the other things such as parking and stuff, so that we can encourage better use of our infrastructure and our land.
Okay, thanks. Our next media question is from Laurel Walmsley of WOUB, and it goes first to Ms. Fall.
Athens, like many other cities in the United States right now, is having budget problems at the city level. And I wondered, if those budget problems continue, would you be more inclined to raise taxes to meet those budget needs, or more inclined to cut back on services? And if you were opting to cut back on services, which ones might you be looking at?
Well, City Council is right now going through the budgetary process. When we go through the budget process, we definitely look top to bottom at all the different things that we provide. It should be noted that more than 50% of our budget, of our general fund, is used for fire and safety, for fire and police. If you add courts and parking enforcement, that's more than 60%. So if you're looking at a budget which the priority is fire and safety, you have to be very careful in making budget priority choices in order to start cutting back services. City Council has had a soft freeze on hiring. We have been very responsible in looking at departments' expenses besides personnel, so that we can make the most efficient use of our money. I'm very encouraged with the support that City Council has given to the city in reorganizing the city works department, so that we have more efficient use of our employees for streets and sewer and water, so that there's more efficient use of personnel and more efficient use of equipment, and that will save the city money. I think that right now the budget projections are pretty much flatline, and we're not really looking at necessarily a big drop. However, this year, in the middle of the year, we did go and cut out $400,000 in our budget. Council is able to do that. We have done it in the past, and if that's needed, we will do it in the future. And there will be areas, however, I don't see that the priority of fire and police will be cut back, since that's the most important right now in our budget.
Mr. Morse.
Well, that's a pretty popular place to cut. That's what Columbus did. They threatened people with cutting police and fire so they could raise taxes. I mean, it's a ploy that's used a lot. No, I don't think we need to raise taxes. I think we might need to raise revenue, which I noticed in one of the city council meetings that even the city council president Bill Bias mentioned that the revenue this year was down in part because we were not building the Holter Clinic, Summit at Coates Run, and all the income that comes from the salaries of the people that are doing that construction. We don't have any big projects like that going on right now, and that's part of the reason why our revenue is down. So, there are other ways to raise revenue besides raising taxes. In terms of what would I cut if we had to do cuts, again, I would suggest that we need to do a top-to-bottom reprioritization. I know that there are recreation facilities like Arts West and things like that that are dearly beloved in this town, and I have no qualms with that whatsoever. I think they're excellent facilities. But, sometimes people in positions of authority have to make tough decisions. And if that tough decision is we only have so much money, we only have so much money to do the things we must do, fire, police, and streets. And if at the end of the day what falls off the table are those projects that people love but we can't afford, then that's where the cuts should be made.
Thank you. The next media question goes first to Mr. Morris, and it's from Sarah Brumfield of the Athens Messenger.
I know this is a topic that there's major variance of opinions on, and that's the University Estates. Should the city be purchasing 600 acres of University Estates? And can you back up your opinion?
Well, I don't understand the necessity of the debate. I saw the first debate was held behind closed doors, which is perfectly lawful thing to do because you're debating a real estate purchase. I understand that. But the second debate, if anybody watched it, it was only 25 minutes long. It was not much of a debate. It was everyone agreed that we had to protect our wellhead and we needed to buy the 600 acres. The only thing that wasn't said was we needed to do that to protect us from the evil developer. I don't think that's a fair thing to say. I think we have a wellhead protection plan. It was, I believe, well thought out, well constructed, and it ought to be enforced. And I don't see anybody going out and saying everybody else who lives over the wellhead needs to have their land bought from them so that we can protect our wellhead from them. So what's different about University Estates? It's because there's appears to be a little mini war going on with that developer. There are lots of not so nice things said about developers in general, and that one in particular in City Council. I don't think that's constructive, and I think it just manifested itself into a little bit of groupthink. We must buy this land. It's the right thing to do. And no, I don't believe we should have bought that land. I think we're going to lose a lot of revenue from all the people who would work to construct the things that were going to be built on that land, all the people who were going to work in those facilities once they were built, all the property taxes from the people who lived on that land, and the school system, I think, has lost a great deal of revenue coming from the property taxes from that land.
Ms. Fall.
Great, thank you. I think that it's a responsibility of City Council and the city as a general rule to protect water quality and the water drinking resources in the city. That's a high priority. It's protecting the health and safety of the citizens. I think that if this property came up, for example, in a sheriff's sale, because the developer may have had problems, we would be derelict in our city duty if we did not go and put in our bid for this land to protect the water quality and the water resources of Athens. Regulations can only go so far, and it needs to be recognized that even though we have a wellhead protection regulation, that it takes money to manage it, it takes money to enforce it. The enforcement may not necessarily be even across the board or even over time. And the best way to protect water resources or any type of important resources like that is by owning it. Furthermore, if you own it, if the city owns it, the public owns it, that reduces the regulatory burden on the businesses and the landowners by spreading the responsibility over everybody who benefits from that resource. And that's a fair thing for the city to do. Furthermore, I see the protection of Ohio, of the University Estates water resource area as an economic development interest. Companies do not move into areas that have water quality issues. Biotech firms do not move into areas that have water quality issues. And the city has never said that they were going to keep 600 acres. They're interested in the wellhead protection area. And there's going to be further discussion when we go, and if the city is successful in this bid with the other areas.
Thank you. We begin the second round of questioning from the media, and we start again with Ms. Hensley from the Post, and the first question will be directed to Ms. Fall.
City Council's been working recently with Green City initiatives and thinking green with different projects. What are both of your opinions on the green initiatives and development in those projects?
Great, thank you. I'm quite excited about a lot of the green initiatives. I think the solar power initiative that Athens City was very instrumental in helping the state move forward is quite exciting. Athens is a leader in the state of Ohio. It's great economic development opportunities. We have to realize that in a lot of ways the future is in the green industries. We have several solar installers in Athens, Dovetail, Third Power, and there's a new company that just opened up. We have other companies that do high efficiency cooling systems. So this is a real growth area that can happen for Athens. I think that in a lot of ways, green can help Athens also save money. Doing environmental audits of our buildings, which the council is working on ordinances right now to fund, will help to make the city buildings more energy efficient, which makes also the energy expenditure less, so we save money, which can be spent in other areas such as sewer upgrades or water system upgrades. I think that looking overall at the whole city, sustainability not only means green energy and those sort of things, it also means looking at our other systems, looking at how people get food, how people transport themselves around the city. And we have to look at it holistically, and that's something that the city is starting to do. And I'm quite enthusiastic because I think that it provides for a more sustainable future and help the citizens of Athens weather out things that may occur in the future, such as economic downturns.
Mr. Morris.
Well, I think there's a lot of enthusiasm in the country right now for green initiatives. There's a lot of money available because of the stimulus package at the national level. And I think we'd be foolish not to apply for a lot of that money. We have the logical brain power here in town to do that. We have companies that are capable of carrying out those initiatives. So I applaud the council's efforts to do that. I would say, however, that it would be better if there were some questions asked along the way. And I noticed last night Nancy Bain asked some questions at the end of the council meeting showing that she has some issues that she wants resolved, and I think that's a good thing there. I would ask lots of questions. One of the things that I learned as a young officer in the Air Force was to ask lots of questions of those people who are carrying out things, and if you get good answers in return, then you can have confidence that what they're doing is a good thing. But if you get bad answers, if the answers are not well thought out, then you need to dig deeper. And I noticed when the City Council passed the green initiatives that Elahu brought up, there were not a lot of questions that I would have asked, like how are we going to do without vehicles that we can't do without now in a few years, and how much is this going to cost? And the city, as I understand it, just bought one Prius for the code office when they could have bought 3 Ford Focus vehicles that would have gotten roughly the same mileage, $25,000 for the Prius and $30,000 for the 3 vehicles. We need to be smart about this and need to ask lots of questions.
Thank you. The next question is from David DeWitt of the Athens News, and it is directed first to Mr. Morris.
You have both said that you support bettering the relationship between town and gown. What tangible steps would you take toward this end?
Well, it's difficult for one city council person to do that. But again, through persuasion and doing everything I could, I would try to get the two parties to act like adults, to put it bluntly. I have a lot of experience with military facilities and town relationships. And normally when you make it clear to both parties that the other would be, dramatically disadvantaged if the other party didn't exist, you can sort of break down some of these barriers and get down to, acting like adults and having a good, healthy relationship. I don't think we have a good, healthy relationship right now. I think the road to nowhere at the university going into Richland Avenue is a monument to that relationship, and I think it needs to improve. There are things the university should do for this community. They should acknowledge the fact that this town does a lot for that university that is not reimbursed, and we need to have a good, healthy dialogue with these people, because it's in their best interest to cooperate with us, and it's in our best interest to cooperate with them. The fact is, there are probably things that the university could do to help defray some of our costs with the fire department. I'd like to explore what other communities have done with their university towns and see if there are things that we could do to improve that, so we have less of a funding crunch in that area. And I just think that the relationship needs to start from one of mutual understanding that we can't live without the other. And I would work to improve that relationship.
Ms. Fall.
I think that one of the most encouraging things is the neighborhood associations are now having meetings with Mr. McDavid, Dr. McDavid, fairly regularly to talk about the issues that face the neighborhood and how the university impacts neighborhoods. So that's something that just started within the past few months. That's ongoing, that will be continuing to go on to better communication. I think communication is a huge part of what the town-gown relationship is about. I think that in their planning processes, the university needs to make better choices, because a lot of times they look at planning, when they do planning for their university, they kind of have the black box where they just kind of put the walls around the university, and they don't think about off-campus impacts. They don't talk with the city administrator or the city council about off-campus impacts, and that goes along with the idea that they're going to increase the amount of enrollment and these other things. They talk about maybe having sophomores be able to live off campus. They have to realize and communicate with the city about the impacts that those have. I've lived in a lot of community that have college as part of it, being a kind of a college brat. And I think that there are a lot of models out there that we can follow to look at how we can balance the impacts and the benefits that the university has on the on the city. I would like Dr. McDavis, the first year he was here, he made a supplement to the impact fee that we get from the state. He matched that, and I would like for those sort of things to continue in the future so that we can have a better relationship with more communication.
Thank you. Laurel Walmsley of WOUB has the next question from the media, and it goes first to Ms. Fall.
I wondered what you thought about Athens as being a sort of capital of this part of Appalachia, and if there's anything that you think Athens could be doing more to be more of a capital to the region, and what that would include.
That's a great question. I wouldn't call it a capital, because I think that there's a lot of people out there who would probably think that they have a cultural capital or a music capital. To their part of Appalachia, I think that also you can't talk about Appalachia as a huge, giant, monolithic entity. We are a shopping magnet for this immediate area. We are a area which provides a lot of cultural opportunities for people who live in this area. We have a lot of opportunities for education in this area. I would like to see more cooperation within the general area between Nelsonville and Athens when it comes to economic development. I think that we don't need to compete for the same entity moving from Nelsonville to Athens back to Nelsonville. I think that that does not help the region. I think that Athens can be a model because we are really forward-thinking in a lot of areas, and we are being very proactive in a lot of areas when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to trying to help support people and being able to deal with poverty. Face it, Appalachia has a lot of poverty. We are very supportive of programs such as the Community Food Initiative that helps people identify and grow their own food, helps students and kids realize where their food comes from. And I think those can be models that says, hey, these are the sort of things that you can support that have a lot of payback for a little bit of investment that supports the whole community as a community, and we can all work together in those sort of things.
Thank you. Mr. Morris?
I don't disagree with anything she said. That's all excellent. Those are all excellent points. I think we should see ourselves as sort of setting the example for Southeast Ohio in terms of what can be done, how we can govern ourselves responsibly. I think we also need to take into account that in large measure, the jobs that are created, the small businesses that are created in Athens affect the entire region. There are lots of people in Southeast Ohio that commute to other cities because it's much more difficult to create small businesses and create jobs in rural areas than it is in the city. And so when we think of ourselves as a city, and I've never thought of us being the capital of the region, but that's a fine way to look at it. We need to understand that we can't be selfish. We have to understand that economic development in Athens affects the entire region because of the jobs and the small businesses that are created. So by doing so, one of the things that I feel from my time on the university, when I worked at the university, one of the things I saw in southeastern Ohio outside of Athens was a real shortage of vision for what young people can do. They have very small focus. They're going to be a coal miner like Dad, or they're going to do what Dad did, in that town. And so cities like Athens need to lead the way in creating small businesses, small jobs, and open up more possibilities to the entire region.
Thank you. Our last media question this evening is from Sarah Brumfield of the Athens Messenger, and it goes first to Mr. Morris.
I was just wondering what you guys think is the top problem in the 4th Ward, and what you guys would like to do about that.
Well, I don't think anybody can drive down East State Street without thinking traffic might be an issue there at Route 33. I know that Andy Stone is working on that, and I would wholeheartedly support anything he can do to improve that, especially in the evening. It's if Athens has a really bad intersection in terms of getting through it, that's probably it right now. I know that the city pool is in need of repair, and that's in the 4th Ward. And I think it's been underfunded, and I think we ought to repair the pool before it has a catastrophic failure and we don't have a pool anymore for recreation. It bothers me that all the children that live on the 4-1 and 4-2 precincts have to cross State Street to get to a playground of any size. I think it would be great if the 4th Ward had a playground on that side of State Street. So there are issues in our ward that I think ought to be addressed, and quite frankly, in the time that since I've been back, back into Athens the second time, I don't recall hearing any of those discussions from the Fourth Ward representative. Neither Debbie or Chris have brought up specific issues to City Council that I've heard. I mean, I'm sure she will rebut that. I don't recall any. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Fall.
I think that my experience is working with a lot of people in the Fourth Ward. One of the major issues is traffic, and it's not only East State Street that's a traffic issue. People both on the Near East Side and on the other, what is termed as the Far East Side, though I know some people don't like that term, is traffic going through the neighborhoods. And I've worked, one of the projects that I did do when I was a co-chair of NENA was work with the Near East Neighborhood Association and develop a neighborhood traffic calming plan that actually went, and I worked with Andy Stone, and that turned into part of the Safe Routes to School program, which has just been funded for $180,000, which is looking at how to make our city streets safer for pedestrians and bicycles. I'm very proud with working with the neighborhood because that's taking a problem that was very real for people, using their energy and their expertise, bringing people together and putting it forward to the city and finding funding for it with the city. I think that some of the issues on the other side of Route 33 is similar. I've had many, many people in those areas talk about traffic and people zooming through their through the neighborhoods. That's not safe for seniors. That's not safe for children. It does not make for a quality neighborhood when you have to be worried about that. And that's been a priority on council for me, and it will continue being a priority. I've worked with many people in city council. The East State Street is also an issue with the traffic, and I think that that's something that's a longer term sort of issue that needs to be addressed with not only cars, but we also have to realize that there are many, many people in both of the areas that bike and walk to work and to stores, and we have to make it safe not only for cars, but also for pedestrians and bicyclists.
Thank you. Now that we have finished with the media question period, we will begin taking questions from the audience, and we will go in the reverse order that questions from the media were received. So I'll direct the first question, to Randy Morris and then Christine Paul. What role do recreation and the arts have in city priorities?
In a perfect world, they have a great role, and if the funds are available, I think they should be fully funded. I don't know whether we have currently enough money to do as much as we're doing now. I hope that's not the case, but again, when you're only funding the police force at about 73%, the manning for the police department, then it makes you wonder whether we might be spending money elsewhere that we should be spending there. So, it's a tough issue. It's a tough issue nationally, the whole issue of funding the arts. It's a very nice thing to do, and if you have enough money, it's something you definitely should do. But in my opinion, a city's responsibility is the safety and security of its population, and if you can't do that and the arts and recreation, then you have to start looking at making some cuts. I don't know that the recreation center is self-sufficient enough. It may need to raise its fees to become more self-sufficient, and I think there needs to be some hard decisions made about the funding. When I watched City Council discuss an air conditioner failure at Arts West, and the question never came up, do we really have the money to pay for this? Should Arts West, is that a higher priority than some other things we have to do, like hiring police officers and funding those departments? The issue never came up. The issue was we need to buy an air conditioner for Arts West. I personally think that some harder questions should have been asked so that we could have decided whether we did in fact have the money for that or whether we should have spent that money elsewhere.
Ms. Fall.
Great, thank you. I think one has to realize that recreation and arts provide a huge amount of quality of life for people who live in a city. And that's really important, not only for the people living there and for the children that go and participate in the different recreation areas, but also it's an economic development issue. Places that don't support those sort of things are not seen as a vibrant place to open up, the kind of jobs that we want to bring to Athens. Business owners like that want places that are family friendly and provide more than just the streets and sidewalks that makes a city. There's the community that also makes the city. Over and over, the people of Athens, through the town hall meetings, through the comprehensive plan, have indicated their support for recreation and arts. It's a priority for many, many people in the city. The recreation facility, the community center, is supported by a bond measure that was voted in by the voters in Athens. I think that many of the facilities that are provided, we get a lot of bang for our buck. We are the recreation facilities such as soccer, where my son has been playing this afternoon. They provide a lot of recreation. 400 plus kids go and play soccer every fall. That also brings in revenue. Those are revenue. If we start cutting back programs like that, we also start cutting back the sort of revenue that those things bring in. And I also would argue that they're essential because they provide a huge quality of life for the citizens of Athens. And I would not want to see Athens be diminished, because I think it would diminish not only the quality of life, but also our economic development advantage that we present to people across the region.
Thank you. The next audience question goes first to Ms. Fall. What are your opinions regarding Council's decision to renovate, then decommission the Columbus Road Fire Station?
Our fire station has lived a long, good life. We've gotten a lot of use out of that fire station, and it's probably very much worth the amount of money that was put into it in the very beginning. It's also in a very problematic area, and it wasn't built in the best way. If it was built now, it would be built so that in 40 years from now, it probably wouldn't be having the problems it has. Because it wasn't built with the looking at the slip-prone hill that it's built on. So in some of those ways, environmental regulation would help save money in the future. We can't just abandon the fire station right now. We have to make sure that it is fully functional and operational and safe for the people who work in it day in and day out, who provide fire safety for our city. We also have to make sure that it's fully functional for the equipment that's stored there. And unfortunately, when buildings get old, sometimes you have to put money into it over and over. It's a problematic space. It has to be realized that we're not going to be able to build a fire station tomorrow. It's going to take a bit of time, 2 to 3 years, to identify a location, which is probably the most difficult part of the fire station equation right now. Identify sources of funding, grants, help from the university, help from the state. In order to build a new fire station, we have to keep our existing fire station up and operational and safe for the people who work there.
Mr. Morris.
Well, I certainly don't disagree with the fact that the latest $150,000 appropriation was probably necessary to keep the folks that work in the fire department in the fire station safe. I guess my question would be, what didn't you hear in the debate about that issue? What you didn't hear was we are now determined we are going to build a new fire department. That was not said. There was talk about, we really should. We really should do that. Nothing, no resolution saying, okay, this is the last time we're going to do this. We're going to fix this thing once and for all, and we're going to build a new fire station. No. In the discussion about the 600 acres, as we talked about earlier, which was, the agreement for $1.75 million to buy that, no one's ever equated the $1.75 million to buy a piece of land that we don't really need, and to my mind, the wellhead protection protects it well enough that we don't need to own it to protect it. that $1.75 million will go a long way toward building a new fire station. But there's never any equation of those two things. There's no thought along those lines. I would say that what City Council needs to do is decide right now that this problem must be fixed. We need to stop putting good money after bad and build a new fire station, and resolve to do that. And if that means not buying the 600 acres, then so be it.
Thank you both. This next question goes first to Mr. Morris. In such a small town, what, if anything, do the newspaper endorsements of both the private and student paper for Mr. Morris mean in this local election?
They mean everything. Sorry. Is that too self-serving? No, I don't know. I have no idea. This is my first foray into politics. I don't have any experience in this. I was prohibited from being in politics for my military career, so I have no idea. I will candidly admit that I don't agree with the private newspaper you referred to all that often, but I sure did agree with them on that. I do not understand all the politics that goes into that kind of thing. I am appreciative of their endorsement, and I hope people agree with it from a, again, purely self-serving standpoint. But I do not know what the people of Athens see when they read those endorsements. I know, judging from the letters to the editor, on Monday, obviously some people feel anger about that. I did not, but I'm just appreciative of their endorsement, and it's not surprising that I found their points to be quite valid.
Okay, Ms. Ball.
Okay. Let's see. Well, I think that everybody should ignore it and think for themselves. I think some of the I was a little upset with reading them. As a public person, you take your slings and arrows, and that's fine. However, I was upset when they started insulting the voters on one level about calling people NIMBYs in my neighborhood and throughout the city who had legitimate concerns about development in Athens. I think that that's not a fair thing to say about people who are not running. I am running, and they could say what they wanted to say about me, and that's fine. I don't like having other people, slurred because of what my positions have been. I think that in a small town, you make friends and you have people who disagree with you, and that's great. I always say to people, politics in Athens is a full contact sport, and that's great. The more communication, the more discussion, the more dialogue we have, that's the more education that people have across the board, and I think that that's good for Athens. But you can ignore them. So.
Thank you. The next question goes first to Ms. Fall, and it's a lengthy one. Regarding the 70+% housing now occupied by students and a university determined to increase enrollment, what do you think could be done to bring families back into the city? A city that is now dominated by students and landlords who have little interest in creating a better quality of life and a more beautiful sense of place.
Okay. That's a long.
I warned you.
It's almost like an editorial. I think that something that needs to be looked at is encouraging development of housing that's appropriate for young professionals and young families, whether that's changing the rentals back into houses, encouraging infill like the Madison Heights projects that I talked about earlier. I've been working with the planner, Paul Logue, and he's been working with the university looking at possible programs to encourage the acquisition of houses and the converting of houses back into homeowner occupied by providing such things as low-income loans to incoming faculty. That's something that I know some universities do in California because housing's so expensive there. My hope is that with the development of Coates Run and Palmer Place, is that more of the inner areas will be, the areas, students will occupy those places, and more of the outlying houses will be available to convert back into homeowner occupied. It's a challenge. I am greatly concerned about the university comments about increasing enrollment. I'm more concerned about them talking about having sophomores live off campus, because I think they need to look at their responsibility and not just basically what they want to do is privatize their housing options into the city and not really take responsibility for that impact. So we need to have a dialogue with the university about these things. And I think they realize that this is a quality of life issue, and also impacts their ability to get people to come and stay and work at the university.
Mr. Morris.
I don't disagree with most of that. Matter of fact, I don't remember anything I didn't agree with. I guess the matter is one of emphasis. I too have done some reading about communities that have come up with. We've done these loan programs for poor and middle class family in here in Athens, and there's also been some work along those lines with the solar panels. But we could also do a similar program, I believe, and it's been done elsewhere, to do just what she just mentioned, and that is to help facilitate the transfer of housing from rental back to single-family dwelling, which is something I think that we ought to pursue. I think the city needs to be less adverse to high-density housing designed for student occupation, because I think that takes a good deal of the pressure off of our communities as well. The university does have a role in this, and I think they ought to be told so. I think they ought to be brought into the discussion and be made to understand that this may require them to part with some land or do other things to facilitate the development of high-density housing for those students, or the additional building of additional dorms. But they need to be at the table, and they need to be part of this solution.
Thank you both, and thank you, audience members, for your very thoughtful questions. I have been instructed that I should end the question portion of tonight's forum around 8, and it's about that time. So we will now hear closing comments from the candidates, beginning with Mr. Morris in reverse order of the way we began. So, Mr. Morris, your closing statement.
Okay, thanks again to the League of Women Voters. I think it's been a good debate, some good issues discussed. I don't know whether anybody's minds have been changed tonight, but they at least have heard the other person's point of view, and that's a good thing. I would like to thank Chris for having an issues-oriented campaign, one where we can disagree with each other but not be disagreeable in the process. I believe that the City Council, which again is full of very talented people and very nice people, could use a different perspective. One that looks at things differently than they do. There's a constituency out in Athens who believes the things that I believe, and their voice is not being heard right now. I believe there should be some diversity of thought in our community when it comes to how it's governed. Because of the numbers, it's not likely that in many instances, the conservative view of the world will prevail. That's just the way the numbers work out. But that doesn't mean that the conservative way of looking at things, the fiscally conservative way of looking at things, shouldn't be considered, shouldn't be part of the discussion, and those things are not happening now because there's no one in the entire city government who is anything other than an elected Democrat. I think there ought to be a little balance, and I offer my services to the community to provide that balance.
Thank you. Ms. Fall, your closing statement,
Thank you.
please.
I want to thank the League and the library again, and also I want to thank the audience for putting in such great questions. I think it's great to have a dialogue like we are having tonight, because that's part of democracy. You know, so we see democracy and happen. And my son's sitting back there saying, "Ooh, what's going on?" So we felt embarrassed. Athens is a great place to live, and I'm very blessed in finding a place to put down roots and to raise my kids, because it's just a wonderful place. It has its challenges. We have tight budgets. You know, we have the idea of how to balance growth and development with also quality of life issues. We also have unique challenges because we're a university town. But we have so much going for us. We have a beautiful setting. We have a university that provides a lot of resources. But we have people, and that's our greatest resource. The people in Athens makes Athens not just a city, but a community. I want to work together cooperatively and respectfully with all the people in Athens to work towards the solutions to our problems and to the issues that face us today. Through working cooperatively, we can face the challenges that we have to make the brighter future for Athens and fulfill our potential that we have as Athens. It's been a privilege working with people on council. I've learned a lot. I've met a lot of people. And I've also met a lot of people who put their time and energy as volunteers into the city. And I really, really appreciate it, because that really makes the community that is Athens. And I hope that you give me the opportunity to continue working with the people of Athens, with this great community, to keep Athens moving forward, to fulfill the potential that is Athens that we all see, and that's why we're here tonight. And I ask for your support this November in continuing being your 4th Ward representative on City Council. Thank you.
Well, thank you both for participating this evening. Thank you to members of the media, to our great audience, to the League of Women Voters, and to the Public Library System of Athens County for making tonight's very informative event possible. So thank you all, and remember to vote.